Welcome to episode 16 in the Accident Theory series. In previous episodes, we learned that early list models focused on immediate and individual factors, which offered little value for prevention because they failed to explain why hazardous conditions existed. More developed list-based approaches, such as tripod and HVACs, organize contributing factors into broader system-level categories, helping shift attention away from individual blame and toward organizational and supervisory influences. However, these models are primarily classification tools rather than investigative methods and depend heavily on the quality of information already collected. In today's episode, we will look at a very specific type of model, referred to as the management, oversight, and risk tree. Using this model, we will discuss loss events and immediate causes, control failures, and management system and oversight. We will end the episode with case study where we can apply our new skills. The Management, Oversight, and Risk Tree, MORT, was developed by William G. Johnson in 1973 as a comprehensive analytical framework for understanding accident causation within complex socio-technical systems. Unlike linear or event-focused accident investigation methods, MORT is grounded in systems thinking and is explicitly designed to move investigators beyond surface-level explanations of accidents. Its central premise is that accidents do not occur randomly, nor are they the result of isolated unsafe acts. Instead, accidents emerge from failures in control, oversight, and decision-making across multiple levels of an organization. MORT conceptualizes accidents as system failures rather than individual failures. This perspective represented a significant shift in safety thinking at the time of its development and remains influential in modern system safety and accident causation theory. Johnson framed accidents as the outcome of interactions between people, technology, procedures, and management systems, all operating within constraints such as time, resources, and competing organizational priorities. From this viewpoint, unsafe actions by frontline workers are symptoms of deeper systemic weaknesses rather than root causes in themselves. At the core of the MORT model is a specific definition of a mishap. Johnson defined a mishap as an unwanted transfer of energy that results in injury to people, damage to equipment, environmental harm, or other forms of loss. This definition deliberately reframes accidents away from outcomes such as injuries or property damage and toward the mechanisms that produce those outcomes. In doing so, MORT aligns closely with foundational system safety concepts that emphasize hazard energy and control barriers. Energy in this context can take many forms. Mechanical, electrical, thermal, chemical, gravitational, and kinetic energy are all capable of producing harm if they are released in an uncontrolled manner. According to MORT, accidents occur when barriers designed to control or separate people from hazardous energy are missing, inadequate, or fail under certain conditions. The injury itself is not the accident, it is the consequence of a failure to control energy. Immediate causes are often the most visible elements of an accident sequence. These may include equipment failures, unsafe acts, procedural deviations, or environmental conditions present at the time of the event. While such factors are important for understanding what happened, MORT cautions against treating them as sufficient explanations. Immediate causes explain how the accident occurred, but not why the system allowed the conditions for the accident to exist in the first place. MORT uses the concept of loss events to broaden the scope of investigation beyond personal injury. Near misses, equipment damage, production losses, and environmental releases are all considered valid loss outcomes under the model. This reinforces the idea that safety performance should not be measured solely by injury statistics, but by the system's ability to prevent unwanted energy transfers across all domains. The tree structure of MORT places the mishap at the top, with branches descending into potential causal pathways. This visual representation reinforces the idea that accidents are the culmination of multiple contributing factors rather than a single initiating event. By starting with the loss event and working backward through the tree, The analyst is encouraged to reconstruct the conditions that made the accident possible, rather than stopping at the most obvious failure. This approach also helps address a common weakness in accident investigations, the tendency to stop once a plausible immediate cause is identified. MORT deliberately resists this tendency by embedding deeper questions into its structure, ensuring that the investigation continues until system-level explanations are examined. One of the primary branches of the MORT tree is oversights and omissions. This branch captures failures related to the design, implementation, and execution of specific controls intended to prevent accidents. Within this branch, MORT distinguishes between specific control factors and broader management systems and oversight. Specific control factors, often referred to as S factors, are those directly related to the task, equipment, or operational conditions involved in the accident. Specific control failures may include inadequate procedures, missing safeguards, insufficient training, poor supervision, or ineffective maintenance practices. These are the elements most closely connected to the frontline work being performed at the time of the mishap. MORT systematically prompts the analyst to assess whether each relevant control was present and whether it was adequate for the hazard it was intended to manage. A key concept used throughout MORT is the term less than adequate, abbreviated as LTA. Rather than categorizing controls as simply present or absent, MORT requires a qualitative judgment about adequacy. A control may exist but still be considered LTA if it fails to reliably prevent hazardous energy transfer under realistic operating conditions. This concept is central to the model and reflects the reality that many accidents occur despite the presence of nominal controls. The focus on oversights and omissions highlights that accidents often result from what was not done rather than what was done incorrectly. Missing hazard analyses, incomplete procedures, unaddressed deviations, or overlooked warning signs are common contributors. By explicitly searching for omissions, MORT helps uncover latent conditions that may not be immediately visible in traditional investigations. However, the use of LTA judgments introduces subjectivity into the analysis. Determining what constitutes adequate requires experience, contextual knowledge, and an understanding of accepted standards and best practices. MORT acknowledges this limitation but argues that hindsight, while imperfect, provides valuable insight into system vulnerabilities. By definition, the occurrence of a mishap indicates that at least one control was inadequate. This emphasis on adequacy also shifts the focus away from individual blame. Operators are often required to make decisions under conditions of uncertainty, time pressure, and incomplete information. MORT recognizes that actions taken in good faith may still lead to accidents if the system failed to provide adequate controls, guidance, or support. The final major component of MORT addresses management systems and organizational oversight. This section of the tree examines the policies, processes, and decisions that shape how work is planned, resourced, and controlled. Management factors are deliberately separated from specific control failures to emphasize that organizational systems exert a powerful influence on frontline safety performance. Management system factors include areas such as safety policy, organizational structure, training systems, communication processes, hazard identification practices, and risk assessment methods. These elements form the background conditions within which specific tasks are performed. Weaknesses at this level may not directly cause an accident, but they create conditions in which unsafe situations are more likely to arise and persist. A distinctive feature of MORT is its treatment of assumed risk. Risks are classified as assumed only if they have been formally identified, analyzed, and accepted by the appropriate level of management. This distinction is critical. Unrecognized, unanalyzed, or informally tolerated risks are not considered assumed risks under MORT. Instead, they remain within the oversights and omissions branch, reflecting a failure of the management system to properly address them. An example of this could be seen in free climbing. In order for a climber to begin their ascent, they need to be aware of the formally identified assumed risks of climbing without safety equipment. MORT requires that risks be explicitly transferred to the assumed risk branch only after evidence of informed acceptance is established. This prevents organizations from retrospectively labeling hazards as accepted risks after an accident has occurred. MORT reinforces accountability at the management level and highlights the importance of formal risk management processes. MORT also recognizes that not all risks can be eliminated. In some cases, preventive measures may be technically infeasible or economically impractical. When this occurs, the responsibility shifts to management to ensure that the decision to accept risk is conscious, documented, and communicated. The model does not judge risk acceptance itself as inherently negative, but it demands transparency and rigor in how such decisions are made. Despite its strengths, MORT has limitations. It is a snapshot in time, capturing conditions as they existed at the moment of the accident. It is resource-intensive, requiring extensive training, experience, and often digital tools or large physical workspaces to apply effectively. As a result, it is rarely used for routine incidents and is more commonly reserved for major losses. Another limitation lies in hindsight bias. Analysts, armed with knowledge of the outcome, may be inclined to judge past decisions more harshly than is fair. MORT attempts to mitigate this by focusing on system adequacy rather than individual fault, but the risk of retrospective criticism remains. Nevertheless, MORT's enduring value lies in its ability to reveal the depth and complexity of accident causation. By systematically examining management oversight, control adequacy, and risk acceptance, it provides a powerful framework for learning from accidents and improving system resilience. Rather than asking who failed, MORT asks how the system failed and how it can be strengthened to prevent future losses. Using case studies in accident theory is important because they provide real-world examples that help link theoretical models to practical situations. Case studies also highlight the complexity of safety systems, showing accidents rarely result from a single failure. In this case study, we are going to speak to Mark, a public transit maintenance worker who had an incident. We will also look at the incident and develop a tree using the MORT method.
Hi, my name is Mark, and I'm a track mechanic with the Toronto Transit Commission, or as the locals call us, the TTC. The TTC operates one of the largest urban subway systems in North America, transporting almost 1 million passengers per day through a complex network of underground infrastructure. I just started at the TTC last year as an apprentice, and today was my first day setting up a work zone on my own. We had a pretty simple task today. The plan was to go to Dundas Station, go down to track level, complete a quick visual inspection of a control module, and return to the platform. Usually we would do this kind of work in the overnight hours when trains are not running. But in the late evenings with 5-minute gaps between the trains, we would have more than enough time to complete the task. We arrived at Dundas Station and called Transit Control to ask if we could go down to track level. Since Transit Control is the operations center for the TTC, we know that they can tell us the perfect window of time to do our inspection. The supervisor at Transit Control sounded very busy and distracted on the phone. I asked if we could have some time to go down, and he quickly said, yeah, you have time now. So my partner and I looked down the tunnel, could not see any trains, and decided to do our work. About 2 minutes had passed and we opened up the sensor box to do our inspection. It is very quiet in the tunnels late in the evening, but we could hear the track rails start to make a metallic pinging sound. The sound they make when they are being flexed, the sound they make when a train is coming. We glanced up and we could see an oncoming train coming right at us. The train operator blasted his horn and we scrambled to get out of the way. We just missed getting hit by a train. My heart was racing, and my partner's face was as white as a ghost. We just dodged death. We immediately got back to the station platform and called our supervisor for help. A supervisor arrived on scene and we filled out a near-miss report. All I know is something seriously went wrong today, and I hope someone can figure out what it was because I am scared for my safety.
MORT enables a structured examination of how management system failures and unaddressed or improperly accepted risks combine to create the conditions under which the near miss occurred. By applying MORT to this case, investigators can move beyond surface-level explanations and identify latent organizational deficiencies that contributed to the lost potential. The top event in this case is the uncontrolled movement of a subway train into a trackway where workers were present. This situation created a serious risk of injury or death and represents a major failure in how work on the subway system was controlled. From a management and oversight perspective, there were major problems that contributed to the event. The maintenance work was not properly planned or coordinated in reference to actual train movement. The worker in the case study reports that this type of work is usually done in the overnight hours. Track access procedures relied on verbal confirmation instead of written authorization and official confirmation. The supervisor at transit control seemed distracted and did not confirm there was no train movement. Also, there were no physical protections in place to stop a train from entering the work area. Communication failures further increased the risk. Operations control was not clearly informed that workers were on the track, and important information about maintenance activity was potentially missed during shift handovers. Training and competency issues were also present. The worker relied on experience rather than formal confirmation. In addition to these oversight failures, the risk itself was not properly managed. The hazard of trains operating near maintenance workers was not fully identified. No formal risk assessment was completed, and effective controls such as physical barriers or system interlocks were not used. The risk was accepted informally by supervisors without proper authority or documentation. Overall, the incident did not occur because of a single worker's mistake. It happened because multiple layers of control failed at the same time. The MORT analysis shows that weaknesses in planning, supervision, communication, training, and risk management combine to allow a train to enter an occupied trackway. This demonstrates that serious incidents are often caused by system failures rather than individual actions. Does focusing on management oversight and system controls change the way we understand responsibility for an incident in a positive or negative way compared to blaming individual worker actions? Share your opinion in this episode's group chat or in the comments section if you are following on social media. In episode 16, we looked at the management oversight and risk tree and how we can apply it to incident investigation. The Management Oversight and Risk Tree, MORT, was developed by William G. Johnson in 1973 to analyze accidents in complex socio-technical systems. MORT is based on systems thinking and is designed to move investigations beyond simple, surface-level explanations. The MORT model assumes accidents are not random and are not caused by single unsafe acts, but by failures in control, oversight, and decision-making. MORT views accidents as system failures rather than individual worker failures. A mishap is defined as an unwanted transfer of energy that results in injury, damage, environmental harm, or other losses. Injuries are not considered the accident itself, but the result of failing to control hazardous energy. Hazardous energy can take many forms, including mechanical, electrical, thermal, chemical, gravitational, and kinetic energy. Immediate causes explain how an accident happened, but they do not explain why the system allowed the conditions to exist. MORT includes near misses, equipment damage, and production losses as valid loss events, not just injuries. A key concept in MORT is less than adequate, LTA, meaning a control may exist but still fail to properly manage risk. MORT emphasizes management systems and assumed risk, requiring risks to be formally identified, analyzed, accepted, and documented at the appropriate level. MORT shifts accident investigation away from blaming individuals and toward understanding how organizational decisions and system weaknesses influence frontline behavior. Although MORT is powerful, it is resource-intensive and subject to hindsight bias, so it is usually applied to serious incidents rather than routine events. COHSI provides its students with a multiple-choice quiz at the end of each episode, which can be used as practice material for the content that has been covered. A free version of the quiz can be accessed by anyone following our content on social media by using the QR code shown on the screen. If you are a COHSI student, please complete the discussion board topics found throughout this unit, as well as the episode quiz. Both of these tasks can be found under their appropriate tabs in your learning portal. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to your course instructor. Thank you for watching and have a safe day.